Good morning, everybody. This is always the awkward part where you're staring at a blank wall and waiting for people to come on. And the reason we don't start off right away is because we give people a chance to log in. Otherwise, they miss what's being said. So good morning to everybody. It's nice to see you guys are saying good morning on the conversation. And we're going to get started here in just a minute as people are logging in. Hey, good morning, Jerry. Hopefully you're seeing this. So good morning. We're going to get started here in just a minute. So good morning to a bunch of you that are coming on. And we're going to get started here with inspiring words from Leah Bailey. And again, good morning. Stay tuned. If you're not seeing people, it's because that's intended right now.
Good morning. How was your week? Just take a moment and think about it. Some of us would have to say our week was a little bit stressful. I know I had a stressful week. We've had a few incidences in our family that really took us back. A mountain of paperwork that stressed me out. But, the saying, I don't know if some of you may not know the saying, but hindsight is 20/20. I don't know if you know what that means, but it means that sometimes something will happen, and then after it happens, when you get to thinking about it, you're like, gosh, that was crazy and horrible. And then afterwards you think about it and it was, wait, but that wasn't bad about it, and that wasn't bad. And, a lot of us do kind of experience that in our life when we're going through something. In the moment, it's like, nah, there's nothing good coming out of this. But after I'm finished, maybe you'll think of your week a little different if it wasn't as great as you thought it was. We can compare notes later. Just kidding. You don't want to know. Anyway, John and I have been every week praying and just really kind of just seeking our heart for you and people around us. We've really challenged ourselves to just notice people around us where they're at, not where we're at, but where they are at in their lives, and to be able to encourage them or to say something, not necessarily spiritual, but hey, you have a nice smile. You're beautiful. People just want to hear something out there that they care. But anyway, one of the scriptures that I really has inspired me through, a lot of things lately, and I just keep going back to it. I did talk about it last week, and it is about, it's Romans 12:2, and I don't know if you had a chance to read it yourself and what your thoughts of it are, but, my take on it is, about conforming, not to conform, but to be transformed. And I said it last week. So let's read it again, and then we're going to kind of ponder on the last half of it. Do not conform to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And be not conformed, but... Oh, wait. Sorry. I did two of them. But by your renewing your mind, that ye may not prove what that is good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Okay. Sorry, I confused you a little bit because I did it twice. So basically, remember what I said, to be conformed to the world isn't necessarily conformed to like a way of thinking that is maybe not your own, and I don't want to be a part of them and what they think, but it can be our own mind sometime. And what it says to renew your mind, to renew it every day, and the way we think about things. And we have our own little world that we can conform to and not change. Transformation to me is change, constantly, every day. What I would love for you to see is not how your week was and then analyze it and see 2020, but to look at it before it even happens. And we have that ability. Our mind is powerful. We have that ability to see things the way they could be. Because I believe we are very clouded sometimes when we think, oh gosh, I know what I have to do today. Believe me, I do it. I get out of bed and go, ugh, But we are to transform our minds all the time. We are to think things differently. The interesting thing is when you are conformed, you're usually conformed by everybody else's thoughts and the thoughts you've always had. To be transformed is an individual thought. It's for you. It's how you need to see things. And I'm just asking you, who has inspired you this week? Some of us are inspired different ways. Some of us are inspired by scripture reading. Some of us are inspired by a piece of art, a book we read. A lot of us are inspired by a documentary on Netflix. And, it doesn't matter where you get inspired. How is it influencing you? How is it changing you and transforming your mind? It does take us first. It doesn't, sometimes we tend to think, well, I wish they would change their way of thinking because they're really irritating me. The only way people are going to change their way of thinking is by seeing how you are transformed. They're going to see how you react to things. And it takes you first. It takes drawing, if you can imagine, a big marker and drawing a circle around yourself first and thinking differently. You can transform so many around you. You can be that ripple effect that we need to see. I like a quote from George MacDonald that John said last week was, I want to help you to grow as beautiful as God meant you to be when he thought of you first. See, God already thought of you first. He created some great things in us, and he wants you to see that in yourself and how you can think through things. I know right now it's just like there's so much going on again, but it is how you it's what you need to subtract from your thought process to transform you sometimes. Sometimes we're inundated by negative. I mean, some of us have Alexa in our house and it pops up and it's just like, oh, I didn't need to see that. Well, subtract it, don't look at it, but here's some few thoughts on how you can, and I'm gonna give you some examples. Like I said, just think about your daily walk, what you're gonna do tomorrow, what you're gonna do today, what you think of me right now. I'm just kidding. Let me help you change that. But we have a choice every day to rethink. Like I said, I had a lot of paperwork, and the funny thing is I had to transform, and one of my encouragers in my life is my husband, my kids. And it's like either you could look at it as paperwork or you could look at it as helping somebody find a home that, this is their dream. This is their retirement. This is everything to them to make a richer life. That's the way I had to look at it, and that really did help me. Some of you have a really hard job and in your eyes, maybe not a great boss, but the cool thing is you have a job to pay the bills. Some of you maybe have lost a job through this whole time, and I am really truly sorry about that. And I hope and pray that you can see that maybe there's another open door, and look at it that way. And lack of sleep because you have a crying baby. You have a beautiful baby. There was a story when my son was in first grade, and Jessica had she was losing her hair from chemotherapy when she was sick, and I would carry her on my hip because she was pretty tired and going through a lot. And I had one of the best compliments from Joshua's first grade teacher saying, as she got to know us, she realized what we were going through. And she said, I just couldn't understand. It blew my mind that knowing now what you are going through with your daughter having cancer, and you guys always had a smile on your face and you were laughing. And I just looked at her, and it's the way we think of things. I could have, because we were hurting. We didn't know how long we would have her. But I looked at her and I said, but I have her now. I have her now. And how do I want her to see me go through this? She knew I was hurt. I'm a mom. I can't hide everything. But I had her now. And it's like funny. When we're in situations and scenarios, I think we need to really think through how else can we look at this. And again, I don't know what's going to inspire you. Not everything inspires people the same, because we're all very individuals. Maybe you don't like the look of your house. I have a spot on the wall you see every Sunday morning. Come on. But this is the thing. I have a roof over my head, and people love to be here and talk. I open my house, regardless of what it looks like sometimes. Students that have finals, and I know they're not all of those students are in finals right now, but they will be. But they're going towards a higher education, and they're going to have an amazing, amazing life. So I just really I want to choose today how you look at things. Another example, my husband and I went on a walk when we first moved down here to California. There would be certain areas that we would just walk through, and there was one time a really bad area, and it was kind of like I was kind of close to my husband when we were walking, and I remember him looking at me and saying, they're just people hacking it out. And I'm like, wow. It didn't make me scared. It made me go, yeah, they are. They're just people hacking it out. So today, challenge yourself no matter where you're at. I'll challenge you, like some of you feel like through this whole pandemic and things, you've really wanted to meet new people. And I'm going to challenge you today to go out to lunch and do what you told yourself you would do. No longer look at it as, well, it never happened. We got to put, feet on our what we say, Transform you today. And that's where it starts, so that your mind will be renewed, and you will prove what is good, acceptable, and perfect for God. All right, I'm going to hand it over to John now. So have a great day, you guys.
Good morning. It's good to be able to sit here and take time to reflect just on a brief moment. I, again, just respect the fact that you have taken the time to tune in, and others that will later go back and rewatch the saved version of this. And I know we say that a lot. I want to give you a few updates, because I know that there has been those that are asking questions and those that I'm sure are wondering as far as any type of time frame regarding what is happening for us to assemble again together. We are still, again, waiting for further guidelines from our governor in regards to what that means. I've been in meetings with the leadership of the church, the facility, carekeepers, and those that work at our church building. And we're still discussing what that is going to mean in regards to what the seating arrangements will need to be for social distancing and all those things that are there. The last thing that we want to do is become an example or be made an example of by trying to rush back. And I know that there are other churches that have opened. Some of the things that we're seeing that they're being required to do is people are having to log in and make a reservation to come to church. Which, as you know, for us, that will mean us needing to create some sort of a website. And there's just a lot that is involved in this. And so I do covet your prayers. I miss seeing you face to face. It's not because I don't want to go back in the sense of to a facility where we can be together. It's just trying to be strategic in regards to what we're going to do. And so for the time being, we are continuing to do live. And even post, when we do get to the chance where we will reassemble together at a physical location, we are going to continue to be live, because I know a number of people have requested that we continue to do this. And that's an encouraging thing to me. There's people that we're talking with out of state that we would not otherwise be in communication with. And so this has opened a new door of opportunity. And I just want to say thank you again as you have supported. I love the comments. I love the fact that I see people that go on and share this video. And I do want to say again, a great way that you can be an encouragement is just share it with some of your friends. If it somehow is communicating to you and you find that there is some source of encouragement that you're hearing, take a moment and share it with some of your friends. Some of you are like, oh, I don't know what they would think about it. Well, maybe take a risk, transform the way you think, like Leah was talking about, and maybe just take an opportunity to say, hey, I saw this today, you might want to check it out. It's up to them if they want to watch it or not. They can watch us for 10 seconds and tune us out, whatever there is. But the one thing that Leah and I have really prayed a lot about is that we want to make sure that during this season that we're in the world that we live in, that there's encouragement and a voice of encouragement. Because when you really stop and think about it, it doesn't matter what all of the media is saying and what all of the opinions of varying degrees of people that are arguing their sides say. I think we would all agree that if there's a God that loves us, I want to hear his voice. I want to know what he would say about us and what he would say about the situation that we're in. And that's been my desire through this. So I want to just take care of a couple of details again to remind you. I've had some question about this. Again, if you would like to contribute, we would greatly be thankful for that. And again, you can go to a Zelle account if you have that on your bank, or you can even download the Zelle app on your phone. And our account is LG Church California, LG Church CA @gmail.com. And if it asks who's in charge of that, just my name, John Bailey. Somebody said that it asked for a username when they tried to give. And so again, I just want to point that out. The other thing is, again, make use of this. We have people that are observing and watching another account that we have for prayer requests. And again, if you have a prayer request that you would like us to be praying for you about, you can go to lgpray4 and the word me @gmail.com. lgprayforme @gmail.com, and we would happily be praying for you. I want to also mention just quickly, our hearts and prayers go out to Maria Salas and her family. Her husband and daughter have now contracted the coronavirus, and we've been trying in ways that, again, someone that is part of our church that now is confirmed that they have that. And so, church, let's be praying for them. We have heard that they are getting better, and that is good news to already hear. So again, thank you as we lift these things together, because we love and care for one another. I want to just kind of bring you to speed on my thought process this week. Leah talked about how we go on walks, and one of the coolest thing, I hope that you have somebody to journey through life with. And that may not be a spouse, but I really hope you have a friend. I hope you have someone that in this journey of life that you can call upon. And Leah was talking with me this morning, and we were having a cup of coffee, and she was talking about things that inspire us. And we talked about art, and we talked about poetry. I love poetry. I'm kind of weird that way. I love to journal. I love to write. I like to, look at flowers. Leah, during this time, planted a small garden beside our house. And there's just great opportunities that we have, even in the midst of a chaotic world, to find moments where we just, if lack of a better term, you see the smile from heaven. And I hope you experience that. I hope you feel that. And again, I'm grateful to you for being in my life. And I hope that, again, I can be an encouragement in your life. Also, we mentioned something, guys, just because we're not assembling together doesn't mean you can't assemble. Find a friend, take someone out to lunch. Don't all of you look to take me out, because then I'll be really busy, but take each other out. Find someone that maybe you haven't seen for a while and say, hey, would you feel comfortable? It's okay to say no if you don't feel comfortable. If you don't feel comfortable going out because of what's going on in the world, we totally respect that. But at the same time, a phone call
maybe a letter. I've received a number of letters, believe it or not, through this period of time, and every one of them, Jan and Bill, thank you for encouragement. Tracy, thank you for encouragement, the things that you guys have said. I've gotten text, I've gotten direct messages on Instagram and comments that have been made on Facebook. Let's, again, like Lee and I talked about, we want to encourage you again, let us find ways on how we can motivate one another on to love and good actions, good things to do for one another. But again, I want to just talk about kind of my topic today I want to talk about ingredients. If you have been around me, and many of you have, you know that my family loves to cook. In fact, interestingly enough, my family sometimes fights over who's gonna cook. And we have a fairly small kitchen in the house that we live in here in California. And you would think that as much as we like to cook, that we would have this grandiose kitchen. One of the challenges about cooking together, which again, Jessica Cinnamon, I know, has also tuned in at different times, and she started during this time, she started a blog on Instagram, and she started cooking a lot of her favorite family recipes. And she made me kind of think about this when I was looking at some of her stuff. But the challenge in this house with cooking together is inevitably you're going to bump into each other. There just isn't space. And yet we've learned how to be careful when we back up, especially when we're holding hot ingredients. We've been careful to be observant, not only to what our eyes see, but what our ears hear, because we may not know that the person is walking right behind us when we're about to turn with something. And so I would say that when we cook, we heighten our senses and we decide, what are we trying to achieve here? Cooking in and of itself is fun, but there's got to be a purpose behind it. I think we would agree that the purpose is to eat it. It's not just to enjoy the process of putting the ingredients together, but ultimately it's to nurture our physical body and enjoy the flavor of that which we're nurturing our bodies with. I've often prayed, and some of you have heard me say this, I ask God that not only would our physical bodies be nurtured by the food that we partake of, but I also pray that God by His Spirit would nurture our spirit by the communication that is feeding our soul. I want you to think about that for a second. What is feeding your soul? What is it that is in this world right now? And again, I know that there are people that tune into this, that watch this, and not all of us are church background, not all of us are... We're just, what we have in common is we're people, and we're going through life and we're trying to figure this out. And it doesn't matter from what, level of income you have or to what level of income you don't have. We are just people trying to figure out how to journey through life. And as I was thinking about ingredients and thinking about things that are feeding my soul, I was taken back in my reflection, and it was just through a daily devotional that I read. And it wasn't so much about the devotional, but it referenced a portion of Scripture. And again, there are things that you can read that God can inspire. God can inspire you through movies. God can inspire you through flowers. God can inspire you through a fresh breeze of wind that comes across you on a hot day. There are so many things that are speaking to us of goodness. And again, I believe goodness comes from God. And I believe, again, His Word tells us that very thing. But one of the passages of Scripture that it caused me to reflect back upon is a portion of Scripture that we're familiar with, but I'm not going to go to the first part of it, because when we go to the first part of it, that kind of traps us in a mindset of forcing us to know what we know. And again, this concept of transformation that Lee and I have been talking a lot about how I think about things, how I act about things, how I respond to things, what my beliefs really are, because my actions actually really dictate what my beliefs are. I can't talk about believing in something and then act like I don't believe what I just said I believe in. And so I've been kind of using just the way my attitude is as a test, if you will, of an expression of, do I really believe this? I'll give you a simple example. One of the cool things that has happened in the most recent of weeks is that I have had more conversations with people outside of the church than I've had with people inside of the church. Now, not to say that I don't care about you. I certainly do, and I've tried reaching out to different ones of you to encourage you and to talk to you, and we're trying to do that. We have others that are trying to step that up as well, because the last thing we want is for someone to feel isolated and alone, and we love you. But it's been cool to interact with people, because one of the things that we got to remember is being together is important, but we're here on a mission, and we need to be mindful of the people that strategically are around us, that we have influence to make a difference in their life. And so I was thinking about, again, ingredients, and then brought me to this verse that, again, we're familiar with. And I'm going to pick it up in an unusual place. And it just simply says, He guides me. I'm glad you don't have it open, because I get to make you pause. Just the simple statement in that few 3 words. He guides me. There's a lot to be said. But then it goes on, it says, He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to His name. Now, I want you to think about that. He guides me along right paths. What do you think the next phrase would be in reference to when it says that He, speaking of God, this great architect that is overseeing with a watchful eye and an active hand in this world, what do you think the next words might be when you think about He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to His name? Well, my mind, unfortunately, because we always think of the easy life, we always think of just, wanting it to be the right way. And if God's the guide, then obviously it's going to be, it must be good, right? Well, after He says He guides me along the right paths, the very next sentence says, even when I walk through the darkest valley. He guides me along right paths even when I walk through the darkest valley. Right now, our world is walking through a dark valley. And when we think about dark valleys, our natural inclination, my natural inclination in conformity, is I want to pray to get out of it. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this dark valley. Help, get me out. Help, help, help. But it says He guides us along the right paths, and sometimes we even go through the dark valley. Why? And some people, think as Christians we should never ask why. Jesus asked why at the most pivotal point at a time in His life when He was losing His life on the cross. He said, "Why have you forsaken me, God?" Now we know God did not forsake Him. And here's what's awesome, is we will never be able to ask God why He's forsaken us because of the price that Jesus paid for us. So when we're going through, is there any hope? Is there any context in this Psalm 23 that we're looking at? Is there any context of if He's going to guide me along the right paths, and even when I go through a dark valley, what's the hope? He goes on to say, He says, I will not be afraid, because here's the powerful thing. It says, for you are close beside me. Perspective. Remember this journey? Are we paying attention? We can get through a dark valley if we have an authentic, genuine knowledge and belief, an active belief, that we believe that God is close beside us. Picture yourself following a guide. When I was in Africa a number of years ago, I was taken through the jungle. And in Africa, where I'm at in Sierra Leone, there is one of the most poisonous snakes that is known to the planet, the black mamba. And as I was walking, Ron Tonkin was there with me, and so he would remember this as well. We were following a guide. A guide is somebody that knows the way. You see, Ron and I had no clue where we were at. In fact, there were small little conversations because of not sure. We didn't know the guide. We were trusting the guide, but we didn't know the guide. And Ron's looking at me at different times. I'm looking at Ron. What if this guy just decides to leave us out here? We're never going to find our way out of this place. And what made it even a little bit more alarming is that after a short period of time, we went through an area in the jungle that was so thick that we could not see our feet below our knees. And then it hit me. Am I walking right next to black mamba snakes and I have no clue about it? The guide knew the way. And here's what's amazing. The guide was barefoot. When I looked at my barefoot guide, I realized I needed to trust him. Eventually, we got to our destination, and we also made it out. Picture yourself walking near a sheer cliff, on a path that has a sheer cliff. Dangerous place to be, precarious. But what if your guide decides to walk nearest the sheer cliff and position you closest to the mountain, closest to the non-edge? When you know your guide is taking the risk, and when you know the guide is there to protect you, you can journey forward. The psalmist said, "I don't need to be afraid, for you are close beside me." In another translation, it reads, "Even though I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I will not fear evil, for you are with me." Even though I walk through. Guys, I want to just encourage you, and trying to be mindful of time today, I want to encourage you, we're going to get through this. This is the worst place to stay. You may feel like you want to run, but I want to encourage you, as the psalmist said, even though I walk through, I walk through. Walk through. Don't run. Certainly don't stop. But walk through this period of time that we're living in confidently, knowing that there are people that love you. There are friends who care. And there is a great God who loves. Going back to ingredients, it brought me then to ask the question, as I journey through this time, as I walk circumspectly, an old, beautiful word we don't use very often, but it just means to be aware of your circumstances, your surrounding, the potential, the power, the opportunity. It takes all of those into account. To walk circumspectly, be mindfully aware, paying attention to what's happening around you. I walked into a marketplace just the other day, and I saw this girl that when I walked in, her eyes brightened up. She greeted me with a huge masked smile. I could see it in her eyes. She gave me encouraging words and just asking how I was doing. This person didn't know me. I didn't know them. But this person took the time to brighten somebody's day. Are we taking the time to brighten someone's day? You have the opportunity today with people that are around you. There are people that you can surround you. There are people that you can choose to be near. As you come, as you go, take the opportunity to make a difference, to be hope, to be light, to be change in this crazy world. So what are the ingredients that we need to really feed who we really are? Peter was someone who was a friend of the person of Jesus Christ. Peter observed in his friend characteristics, attributes that he later would write about. And in 2 Peter chapter 1, he talks about all kinds of promises. And I'm not going to read about those promises. You can go back and do that yourself. But it talks about living in light, in the nature and the awareness of all the promises that are given to us. And in living with that nature, he then picks up this concept of ingredients, and he says this after reflecting on all these promises. He says, so for this very reason, make every effort to add to your faith. Now, faith is really just a beginning point. It's in the launch, if you will, of beginning to really believe that if there's a God, he actually loves you. Not that he's suspicious of you, or he's just can't wait to beat you or hurt you and punish you. But it's when you finally begin to really believe that he really loves you. That's that starting point of faith. And Peter says, so add to your faith. And again, I want to hit it again. Make every effort. he says, to add to your faith. And then he gives a list. He says, add goodness. And he says, and then when you add goodness to your life, add knowledge. Knowledge about what? Well, knowledge about what God thinks about you, what God cares about. And then he says, into knowledge, he says, add self-control. Sometimes the best way that we can represent goodness in this world is to just control ourselves. Not to just fly off the handle because of what we think, feel, or want to say, but to control ourselves, and with the knowledge of goodness and faith, to act rightly. And add to self-control, he says, add perseverance. In other words, he says, don't give up. To perseverance, add godliness. To godliness, he says, add mutual affection. And to mutual affection, and again, what's mutual affection? Mutual affection is where you care about something. We agree that we care about something, but then he takes it a step further. And once you find that you're mutually affected about something, love. Love it. And then he goes on, if you possess these qualities in increasing measure, they will keep you from being ineffective and unproductive in your knowledge of Christ. The point that he's making is he's saying, listen, you can have a knowledge of God, but if you do nothing with that knowledge, you're not doing what God wants you to do in this world. We are to be acting upon the knowledge that we have. He goes on and ends this portion and says, whoever does not have these attributes is nearsighted and blind. What is nearsighted? It's to be over-focused. It's to be so stuck on one thing that we don't see the bigger picture. We just watched as a family an older movie about a doctor by the name of Patch Adams, starring Robin Williams. And in the movie, as he has committed himself to an insane asylum because he thinks he's crazy, there's a man that keeps holding up his 4 fingers and asking people, how many do you see? Patch Adams, the character, played by Robin Williams, says 4. And the man looks at him and says, another idiot, and walks past him. Later in the movie, as Patch Adams walks in and sees the same man journaling a scientific formula, realizing this man was not crazy, he held up his fingers again, and he said, how many fingers am I holding up? And he said, don't look at the problem. Don't look at the presentation. Look beyond. And if you look through the 4, you'll see the shadow of another 4, and you'll see 8. Take a chance. Try it for yourself. When you let your vision go beyond what is right in front of you, when you let your focus go beyond what is right in front of you, you are just starting to see the bigger picture. You and I have a chance to look beyond. We have the opportunity to have been given by goodness, by God, the ingredients to bake daily bread. But you and I, as Chip Ingram states, must be the bakers. God gives us the ingredients. Choose the freshest. Don't look for rotten tomatoes. Don't add ingredients that will sour your life. But find the ingredients that will make a huge impact. Mother Teresa, in her journey, said it's not how much we give, but how much love we put into our giving. It's not how much we give in this world. Yeah, we need to give more. Give more in the sense of hope, laughter, love, encouragement. But if you can only afford to give a little, make sure you're pouring an intense measure of love in what you do give. My wife has got me to follow Denzel Washington. And I loved what he said. He said, at the end, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Guys, let's be good. Let's focus our attention. Let's see the bigger picture. And let's be ready to give the reason when we're asked for the hope that we have. I hope this finds you well. I hope that you have been encouraged today, and looking forward to when I do have the chance to I'll give you an air hug for right now, and just say again, thank you for tuning in. We really do love you, really do appreciate the time and that you have invested in listening to these live videos. And again, be safe.